I don't know if those neighbors are right on the edge.
Good.
Yeah.
So you get the JV team today. Gene was slotted for this time frame, and unfortunately he had some health issues, so we had to jump in here and be the backup. But hopefully we'll give you a tidbit. Can you hear us without this, or do we need to have this? Have this. All right. So again, when you are in the council and you get an opportunity to write the program descriptions, you probably notice that this seminar was titled that it was presented by a couple ruggedly handsome, unusually intelligent individuals.
It did make us sound a little weird.
Yeah,
the unusual part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you know what we're going to do is we're just going to go through a lot of material really pretty fast. You know, and it's just some experiences that we've had, some little tips and tricks, how to plan for a do-it-yourself hunt, you know, and how to, why you want to hunt on the budget. And, of course, the biggest thing you can do on the budget is to do the hunts on your own, so do-it-yourself type hunts as opposed to, guided hunts. But you can even find some guided type outfitted opportunities that are pretty affordable too, and just do your homework, etc. So we're going to run through an agenda that's pretty long, and again, we're going to hit it really fast. And we're in here preaching to the choir. Most of you guys have been on dozens, if not hundreds of hunts, and have done all the planning, research, and work it takes to do it yourself hunt. And so don't be afraid to jump in with another tip or trick that helps out as well. So so hopefully you'll get something out of this. So we're going to start out with our agenda. Bow hunting on a budget. We're going to talk about why. What some of the steps are. You got to determine what type of hunt you want to do. You got to start saving. Spouse permission, whether we all like to admit it or not. You may think we're the richest in the family. That Steve Hodensey was saying, well, you have to ask your wife permission, and you're kind of wimpy. It's like, well, I'm still married.
If you guys remember me from the last banquet, I had a few bruises and stuff. That was from going on a hunt without permission. So I don't advise that.
Again, it's like anything else. The success of a hunt when you do it on your own, it's all about preparation and planning, and you got to start early to really get the details put in line. So we're going to talk about that. It helps to go and take a partner that you can stand more than 3 days. It's like they say, a partner or a company is like fish, it starts stinking after 3 days. That's particularly true in a tent in a weather-bound tent in Alaska. So you got to be careful with who you take with you. Do your research, state and study your state and local regs because they're different. Realistic expectations, physical conditioning, a timeline, gear, food list, arrangements, a budget, a backup plan. I think we're experiencing a little bit of reason why you may have a backup plan this week. We'll talk about some experiences we've had. Your strategy, and sometimes you may go in thinking you know exactly how you're going to hunt, where you're going to hunt, when and how, and it may not work out quite that way. So you got to be flexible and adapt. And then safety. And we're not going to hit a lot on that because we're not all that safe. So why do you want to do this? Because I don't know if you guys noticed that guided hunts are really expensive. And you can see some examples up here. I mean, a fully guided moose hunt. If you can get a guided moose hunt for $15,000, it's probably not Alaska Yukon. It's probably a Canadian or maybe a Shiras. But if you want to do an Alaska Yukon moose anymore, a fully guided one's about $25,000.
Yeah, in fact, in 2003, I went to Newfoundland for a moose hunt guided. It was right around $5,000, and my buddy went on it again last year. It was $10,000, and he didn't get a moose, but I mean, still the price is just going up and up and up.
11.5 this year.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you have the money and that's what you like to do, by all means. We're not condemning guided hunts in any shape or fashion. It's just that from our experience, you can often go 2 or even 3 times and hunt, even if it's on your own. Maybe you don't have the 85 or 90% success rate as you do on a guided hunt. But if you've got a 15, 20, you do the math. You go 3 times, your odds and percentage of success are probably not that far off. And you get to hunt 3 times.
And I think it's more rewarding too. Like the hunt that Brian and Jim did. Those guys. That's pretty rewarding to go and do all the planning and make it happen yourself. There's a lot of value in that.
All right. So let's keep going here. So again, determine your desired, the hunt that you want to take. What species is it? What have you dreamed of? What do you want to do? Is it in-state, out-of-state? Specific areas, that you really wanted to visit or try? What hunting method do you like that you want to match up to? If it's a special draw unit, that takes obviously a little bit different preparation than over the counter. Outfit it or do it yourself, and then is a guide required? I would love to go hunting for brown bear in Alaska. I'd absolutely love it. And I've been to Alaska 9 or 10 times and have spent probably 2 months in a tent in the wilderness, but I'm not as qualified as a jeweler in Anchorage to go out there and hunt myself. It's a guide required. So just because you like it doesn't mean you get to do it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, let's say I was talking to PBS just yesterday, and he's older, retired, and he wants to kill an elk. He's never killed an elk, and we talked about a cow hunt. I hunt cow elk in a couple of different states, and I said I know a place where the tag's a little expensive. I went there last year, and if you don't care about killing the bull, an antlerless for cow elk, this is fine, and he was very happy with that. So that's something to consider too. You can. Sometimes the price is less, or it's a higher number, so that type of hunt is definitely a good option to consider.
Yeah, and to its point, so the next factors to consider, you may have the desires of hunting mountain goat on the high peaks of British Columbia, but if you have a body condition like mine, you may not be quite qualified to do that. So your experience or your ability, make sure that that matches up. The dream is good, but preparation is better. So make sure you're ready to go and do it. Choose your hunts realistically based on that. What do you like? What are you good at? High odds for your first hunt. Those are always nice. Like Kodiak Island, Alaska for Sitka. The odds are pretty good. If you get out there and hunt, and do your research, you have a pretty good chance of being successful. So things like that. And again, physical conditioning, we'll talk about a little bit more later. I've always experienced it, that the better physical condition you are on the hunt, the better odds you will have of success, because you're going to get out and hunt more, and you're going to hunt harder, and you're going to feel better about it. So it's just what it is. And again, your budget, like I just mentioned, Kodiak brown bear is pretty unlikely. Those things are very expensive.
Yeah, so even if you're going to go do it yourself, it's going to cost you money. And later on, we're going to give some examples of some of the hunts that Terry and I have done in recent years. But and this is kind of common sense, but if you just do a few things like if you're a smoker, quit smoking or reduce it, brown bag it. There's all different ways there. You can see the different numbers, but one of the best ideas is to have a separate account, because I made the mistake where I had a little extra money, but I didn't put it in a separate account. Well, it disappeared whenever I needed a washer or a dryer or something like that.
We need the bottom.
So, that's a really good idea. And again, I was talking about, you have to be really careful. Terry put the last one on there. It depends on how brave you are. That one there you might want to take. Everybody.
So again, gain spouse permission. If you're fortunate enough to have an adventuresome spouse or one that actually likes you and wants to spend time with you, take them along. It's a lot of fun. My wife, this is a do-it-yourself moose hunt in Alaska. She went with me. We were up there, got dropped in the middle of nowhere, and we were out there 5 days. And the air taxi guy was supposed to do a mid-hunt flyby. So after 5 days, he didn't show up. She's like, "I think he's forgot about us." I said, "Honey, this is Alaska. They get weathered in. The weather in Galena could be very different than what it is here. So they get weathered out, they can't fly." Next day he doesn't show up. What are we going to do? It'll be all right. He'll show up. Next day he doesn't show up. Oh boy, we're going to say, "Honey, we've got 700 pounds of moose meat. We're not walking out of here. So we're not going to starve. It'll be all right." So I guess 9/11 happened on a Tuesday. And if you recall, they put a flight moratorium on it and said, you put that Super Cub up in the air and we'll shoot you down. So they didn't show up. Anyway, so our pilot came in, I guess it was on Friday. He lands, float plane lands down. And he says, "Well, let me tell you what's been going on." He goes, well, those twin towers are no more. I said, yeah, that Ralph Sampson and Akeem Olajuwon thing never did work out. You know.
The other put out.
So, but she was a good sport, and we obviously had a nice hunt. But if you can take a wife, I mean, it makes it a lot easier because they're there with you and can't work. Although she wouldn't let me spray moose, cow, and meat urine on her pants. She wouldn't let me do it. She had her limits.
Does that mean you got an extra 3 days of free hunting?
It was a mid-hunt check. We still stayed because we couldn't get out even after that.
The promised midnight check.
Yeah. That's optional.
It's almost a rule. You gotta promise it, then you gotta breach the promise.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you're planning to hunt, there are certain things you have to do. And the fellow I was talking to about, he wants to hunt cow elk. Well, the place that I'm recommending he goes to requires 1 point. And I can't go this fall anyway. I have an early hunt plan. And so in his case, he needs to buy a preference point this year. And so, just little things like that. Vacation time, you want to maximize as much time as you can be there, to increase your odds. We already talked about saving money, but a lot of the hunts, if we're talking about Rocky Mountain hunts, you have to build points. And also, you have to stay on top of the regulations because they change every year. And so, as a matter of fact, I have points in Colorado now I'm not sure what I'm going to do with because they're in the process of changing their regulations for elk and deer hunting. So you have to stay on top of that. But all these things, if you start early, I'm going on a hunt in Alaska in September, and I have 6 months. So, I'm already working up some arrows. I increased the bow weight, starting to work out. So 6 months will go by pretty quickly. You don't want to get there a month before the hunt and realize, hey, I'm not ready for this thing.
And again, you can't, last minute things just don't work. For example, if you plan to hunt out west or a lot of these tag controlled type areas, there's application deadlines, and most of them are even already past to hunt in the fall. So you have to think ahead. It's really hard to just get over-the-counter tags are pretty scarce anymore. So you really have to plan ahead. You have a question?
I did. Have either of you guys used any of the agencies that help you manage your draws and tags and everything?
So the tag system like Cabela's I've heard out, and
yeah, there are a couple out there. I haven't. I've heard mixed results on that sort of thing. I've unfortunately missed a few deadlines, and so that's one way of avoiding that. So I don't know. Does anyone else use any of those services? Anybody have any feedback on that?
The application services, or basically, I know that there's one where you give them like $1,000 and they'll apply for all the tags for you, and if you draw, you pay them, and you get a percentage, right?
Cheaper than that, if you subscribe to the Hunting Fool, they do a pretty good job of telling you when these deadlines are.
Right.
They got a deal that lays it out. They got recommended hunts. They'll tell you what the odds are, all in a nice, shiny.
In case you can't hear me back, he was just saying the Hunting Fool, which is a paid periodical that they give you reports on hunting areas, details of it, tag application, deadlines, and stuff like that. They do a pretty nice job. I don't know what the price is for that subscription right now. It's like a magazine subscription, but it's
it's
a little
more
more
like $100 a year.
Yeah.
not so not.
Yeah, but if you're pretty organized, you can probably do it yourself. And I know in Utah I was building points for elk, and unfortunately I missed a deadline, and so I didn't get a point that year. But that dropped me out of it. And now instead of having a guaranteed tag, that little mistake cost me. And now I don't have, my odds went down to like 50%. So maybe that as a service that would help. And because I mentioned like Wyoming, they changed their dates, and Colorado, so a service like that would be good for keeping up all the changes in the different states.
Yeah, sometimes if you forget, you snooze, you lose per se. Wyoming's actually fairly good if you actually, if you miss a year, you forget, they'll give you a year to make it up. But if you don't apply the next year, you may have 6 or 7 points, but they go back to 0.
Applies for
And those points aren't cheap anymore. Moose point for Wyoming, $150 a year, and it takes 15 probably to draw.
No idea what it costs, or I'd tell them.
So the next one, pick a good partner. I've got a picture of a partner, but I don't have good. No, he's been great. And this was actually a really fun hunt on Sitkanak, which is Kodiak Island, a set of 3 islands down on the south end of Kodiak. There's like 13 trees on the whole island. And we were real fortunate, and optimistic and happy fellows that this was the day that it didn't rain. It rained twice. It rained 4 days the first time and 5 days the second time. But it was a fantastic hunt.
It was a lot of challenges, but it was fun. But we've heard stories about a couple guys going to hunt together, good buddies when they start, and then they're not good buddies at the end. As a matter of fact, on that particular hunt, we had one team that didn't work out so well. So that sort of thing happens. So you saw that Brian and Jim talking about their hunt, and they knew each other for a good while. It might not be a good idea to just pick someone you don't know very well.
Pick them up off the internet.
Right. I went on a hunt in Utah one time with a friend that I knew for years and years. We deer hunted, and he always wanted to elk hunt. And we left on good terms. We were good friends. When we come back, we weren't good friends. We didn't talk for years. So I didn't do a good job picking my partner that time. And he was driving, so I was stuck with him. So I learned my lesson on that.
But and that's critical. I mean, so I hunted with a guy for years, locally and road-bound system, and we flew into a remote lake in Alaska, and the guy just couldn't take it. He could not couldn't take the isolation, couldn't take the fact that he couldn't hop in the car and drive to Walmart if he forgot something. It's a very different thing to be out there. And I guess I wasn't smart enough or never have really taken sat phones or anything with me. So you were there until somebody showed up. And for some people, that's just not a comfortable feeling. So some people don't do that. And if you can't take being isolated, then don't go on that type hunt because you're isolated. And but he had a real hard time with that. He got a little pouty at the end.
Yeah, so researching, and this goes along the lines of preparation, it's so much easier now than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. There's so much information out there, and so we listed some different things there, but I can tell you one of the best sources of information research, they're sitting right here. I think one of the best advantages of the PBS is we got people in every state, all over the place, they've done hunts everywhere, and so don't be afraid to use that resource. I've done that many times. Most of my hunts are with PBS people, and so it's very good. One of the things down here that I've learned over the years, one of the items is call your state area game biologist, and you guys probably know this, but when you do call them, do a little work ahead of time. They hate when people call and say, hey, where can I kill big 350-inch bull elk? That's not what you ask. Basically, you do a little research ahead of time and maybe check the harvest statistics from the previous year or have a specific area in mind. And once you show them, hey, I've actually looked into this a little bit. How about this road? Is it closed now? And you'll be surprised how much information you can get. When I went on a Utah hunt, I was checked by a game warden. And we started talking, and it turns out he was from the east, and we had some things in common. And we stood there and talked for an hour or two. Next thing you know, he's giving me his honey hole. It was a tree stand already in it. I mean, and we're still friends to this day. And in fact, he was a PBS member for a year. So, so there are some great ways to do it. But, if you're going to call a biologist or a game managers, do a little work ahead of time and show them that you're serious and you know a little about it. You can get some really good information.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, you read and you see these stories and you watch these TV shows and, they talk about going deer hunting in Iowa. And you get the perception that you can drive out there and there's a deer behind every tree. Without your research, there's very few good public areas in Iowa. You could show up there and have a horrible, horrible hunt. Same with Alaska. Everybody thinks, man, there's game behind every tree in Alaska. Well, 95% of Alaska has no game. So you just really have to know where you're going or you could be really disappointed. So again, the research.
And another example, I had a call from a PBS member a couple months ago whenever the Wyoming application was in January. And I've hunted with this fellow before, and he said, hey, I'm looking for a partner on an elk hunt. And so I was kind of interested. I like hunting elk, and so I started asking questions. Well, it turns out he got this tip from somebody that he'd never been there before, didn't know the area, didn't know much about it, really had no idea. And so I quickly declined the invitation. Because it was pretty clear that he wanted to use his points, but that type of hunt where you just go and hope for the best usually doesn't work out that well. And that was an example of not doing very good research for a hunt.
Yeah, the next one again, it's part of your research is that you can't assume that the local or state regulations are the same where you're going as it is at home, because they're very different. Everyone has their own set of rules and guidelines. Arrow definition, Alaska has some very specific arrow definitions, bow definitions, versus Indiana or Florida. Everybody's a little bit different. And down on the end, I'm going to let Jeff talk about these, but they're really important.
Right, definitely the unit restrictions. I took my son on a hunt in Wyoming, and some states, every unit has their own regulations, own seasons, own requirements, and my son really wanted an antelope. And so we arrived a day or two early, and I thought that the unit was open, so we pulled into this area, and there's antelope just grazing like cattle there. And my son was excited, we thought this is going to be an easy hunt. And luckily we checked the regulations, and it didn't open for 2 more days. So it could have been an easy hunt, but a big violation thing. So you definitely need to know. Another one we talked about was like the minimum draw weight. I drew a tag in New Hampshire. You had to have a 60-pound bow, and so I had to borrow one. And I might be the only person who's ever been checked in the field by a game warden who had a bow scale with it. He actually was walking around, and he put up on a limb, and he put my bow there, and luckily my bow was 61 pounds, so I passed it. I could have gotten in trouble because, this is the way it is, non-residents are easy targets for certain, for game wardens who need to write some tags. And so I would have been a good candidate if I didn't follow that regulation and made sure I was legal.
And you'll see a common theme. We're getting into a lot of details, and it can be somewhat intimidating and overwhelming when you see all this information, these things to be aware of. It's not as bad as it is, but you have to be aware of it and pay attention to it. But again, you do your research. It's not that bad. So again, it looks like a lot of things you got to be careful of, and you get in trouble and do research. But these are things that you just have to pay attention to. But it's not as bad as it can look like. Set realistic expectations. Again, if these are do-it-yourself hunts, you're not going to be able to probably go in on a $1,500 elk hunt and get a 350 bull. Maybe if you did your research and you have a premium tag that took you 10 years to draw, that's pretty good realistic expectations if you've done your research. But if you're just going to go in an over-the-counter unit, you better expect that a spiked forkhorn may be a pretty good bull, or a 200-inch bull may be a good bull. But if you go in, I'm going hunting in Colorado, I'm going to shoot a 350 bull over the counter. It's like, good luck, you're one of the very few. But it could happen. But if you go in with realistic expectations and you do have those opportunities, and that makes it that much sweeter. So just know the area, the potential of the area that you're hunting, and oftentimes it's the experience. So when we went up to Sitkinak, again it rained every day, except the one where we took the picture. But that particular day, we hiked about 6 miles around this island to a creek. We got there, and it was full of steelhead. So I packed in a little fishing rod, and we caught some steelhead. And there was like this driftwood from Japan on the beach, and these river rocks that are flat. So we lit a little fire. Yeah.
So bird break whales.
Bird break, yeah. We actually found the mammoths called there too. But, anyway, so we're sitting there, and we caught that fresh fish. We built a little driftwood fire and put those fresh caught fish on that rock and picked it up. Yeah, that made the trip. We both killed something. But that was really the good part about it. So again, first hunt oftentimes, this is key. As you learn more, your odds of success are going to increase. So as we mentioned before, a lot of times you can go 2 or 3 times for the same one. But the first time often is a learning experience. We all learn things when you go, and you can improve upon it. And then later on, your success is going to be likely.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you all have read the books by Mike Mitton, One with Wilderness, and also Monty Browning's book, if you pay attention, they started out, they built some skills at home, but then they took some steps. They went out to the Rocky Mountains and developed, do-it-yourself hunting skills and their equipment and so forth. Then they stepped up to Alaska. It might be a little bit more challenging and difficult if you're just hunting backyard whitetail and you say, I want to go to Alaska on a solo 15-day hunt in the backcountry. That might be too much of a step. So, it might be good to kind of work your way up and develop your skills and experience instead of taking a big plunge. Physical, we talked about this, physical conditioning. There's nothing worse than saving this money, buying expensive tags, going on this big hunt, and not being physically fit enough to actually, kill an animal. I've been on several elk hunts out west where, after a couple of days, I was kind of worn down. I didn't prepare properly, and I could hear a bull bugling over the mountain or down in a nasty canyon, and I physically couldn't do it. And I regretted that for a long time, but I just didn't do my job. I wasn't prepared. And so the more you do for physical conditioning and diet, lose weight, get yourself prepared, the better your hunt will be.
As you see on the picture, this was just February. That's Tom Jenkins. He shot a great big hog. There was no way he was moving that hog by himself. So we were fortunate that we had several young fellas there.
Yeah.
So it's always good to bring a good young fellow with you.
Yeah.
Nice pig.
Again, this is just, just as an example. Set a timeline. Again, it's all about planning. You got to plan in advance. It'll mix and mash, and this isn't written in stone, but it just gives you an idea that there's a lot of different iterations of planning your hunt that you really have to prepare for to make it successful. General information gear. We make lists because even when I was younger and had it in memory, now that I'm getting older, these lists are even more important. And not only that is, a lot of times on some of these hunts, particularly fly-in type hunts in Alaska, they have weight restrictions, or even fishing trips up in Canada. Or if you're packing into the high country in Utah or Colorado or Nevada, weight matters. So when you put together a list, you put together how much they weigh, and you get accumulated up, it helps you to be prepared to know what you can work with and handle. And it helps so you don't have any significant oversights, which was a comment my buddy in New Mexico made once. We were hunting up by the Hickory Indian Reservation on a hunt for elk, and we packed all the way back in there. Oh, maybe 4 hours in. We get there, we're setting up the tent, and looking around. Couldn't find my sleeping bag, and it wasn't there. And he looks at me and says, "That's a significant omission." Yeah.
You forgot to sign a responsible person.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, or it was me and I was irresponsible. That's pretty much what it was. Yeah, and again, so there may not be any Walmart. So again, those lists make a difference, to help you not have any significant omissions, because those are inconvenient. And it gets cold up there at night. So again, the first year you may be required to, if you're prepping for a specific type of hunt, whether it's a high country, whether it's Florida gator, there's specific gear for the specific areas that may take, that you may not have. So there may be a first-time expense for those things, but oftentimes I still have a Qualifil sleeping bag I bought in 1999 that still works great. So you can get a lot of hunts out of them, but you should buy the best quality you can afford, because it'll last longer and it can save your life in a lot of ways. Whether it's wet country, dry country, hot country, cold country. There's specific gear that's for specific reasons and positions.
Yeah, and I was talking about, if you're going to go on a big hunt, you practice on smaller hunts. This is a smaller hunt, it's like a weekend hunt or like, a shorter hunt, is a great way to try out new gear, try out different pieces of equipment. And Terry talked about, I'm pretty cheap, and so I've gone to Walmart and shopped for my hunting gear, and I've been sorry. So it really is important to buy quality gear. And actually, there was some quality gear in the raffles here today that I'm actually hoping to be the lucky winner on. So yeah, that makes a huge difference. And so the gear and food list, you have to be prepared for anything. And I know from my upcoming hunt, I'm probably going to get some mountain house, but also mountain house is fairly expensive anymore. There's all different ways you can dehydrate food. You can take some things that I have no problem with ramen noodles for a couple of days, or some of that oatmeal and so forth. So you can definitely save some money instead of going to mountain house or some of the more expensive ones. So you just have to make sure you have enough.
Yeah, one of my potato pearls, believe it or not, they weigh nothing. But they just add water, and it's a very filling meal that has some energy. But those type of things, anything that's a just add water type of meal, again, it doesn't have to be the real fancy, expensive stuff. I mean, Hamburger Helper, if you take it out of the packages, out of the box, it condenses down, you vacuum seal it, it weighs nothing, it's a lot of energy, and it's inexpensive. You know, a lot of those type of things. And again, that's what you want to do. If you're going to carry heavy stuff, make sure it's pretty high in calories so that you don't, you can get the benefit from it.
Yeah, one thing I've learned for the hunt I do down in Georgia, I make sure there's always someone who can cook in camp. I'm not much of a cook, and so that makes the hunt so much better. And the last couple of years, we've had 1 or 2 guys that can really cook. To the point where I'm out in the swamp and I'm thinking about what's for dinner tonight. So that's a really good thing to have. And your specifics, the camouflage. I thought it was interesting on Brian and Jim's talk last night about how they use the retro camouflage, and it worked just fine. You can spend lots and lots of money on that expensive camo, but you don't always have to. You have to have good rain gear though. And in Alaska, the saying is cotton kills, and there are certain cases where that makes a big difference. So there's such good quality equipment out there: socks, the boots, game bags. I've never bought like a real game bag. Pillowcases work just fine. Never had a problem with pillowcases. There's so many ways you can save money, but in certain cases. But like for the rain gear and boots, if you don't have good footwear on an extended hunt, you're going to be sorry. And you don't want to find that out on that hunt. You want to find out before the hunt. So
who in here's had a hunt ruined because of foot care? I mean, it's just
you don't want to learn that on your hunt. So that's another example of you don't try to save money on the footwear. You got to make it in the rain gear.
Yeah, break them in before you go. The great new shoes. Breaking them in on the hunt's not the time to do that. Yeah, again, I found that you got to take good care of your feet. Again, your backpack, and we're not going to go into these details. I mean, I think you get the gist of it is that, it's hunt specific. So again, plan for what you're going to hunt. Are you going to need an external pack frame to pack out meat? Or are you going to need just a day pack or a detachable pack? So whatever type of conditions that you're planning to hunt, just buy the gear and partake the gear that you need. The optics, you've all heard this 100 times. Take the best you can afford, because it matters. If you can pick out that mule deer on the side of the mountain at 200 yards and see it well enough to judge whether it's worth hiking down and up that mountain, it's worth its weight in gold. After the 4th or 5th mountain, you walk up and it's like, dang, that wasn't what I thought it was. So that really does make a difference. Or it's rained for 2 days and your optics fog up, and then you're kind of SOL. So yeah, get the best you can afford. If you can get a tripod and the hunt allows it, they're nice. They keep shit from holding it all day. Again, there's camping equipment, sleeping pads, all that type of stuff. Get what you can. What makes a difference? Go ahead.
I noticed you had no down. Is there a reason for that in your experience?
Well, yeah, I'm not a big down fan. If it gets wet, you're in big trouble.
It's cold.
Yeah.
And it goes down to nothing. It doesn't fly. It takes a lot to dry back out. Down in cotton's probably killed more people than anything.
Okay.
I do have one down sleeping bag. I'll use it for like a weekend hunt or close to home.
Dry weather.
I would never count on it on an extended hunt. I would recommend it.
It said rectangular up there also. Is that a rectangular shape?
It is to me. It's a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, the mummy bag, I have a mummy bag I used one season and I hated it. I was so confined in there, I can't use it. So, but those are the things that you can, and it was a yard sale. It was a yard sale on the bag. I'm cheap. I got it for $10 and I realized that's why it's $10. But, those are things you work out ahead of time. Because you might look out and find something really good. But yeah, those are little personal preferences that make a big difference.
No, the sleeping bag, again, so one thing that I will splurge on for weight is my sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be, if you're not rested, you're not having a good hunt. So I like a big rectangular sleeping bag that I can move around in. Those mummy bags are so you keep your head covered up. Because if your head's cold, your whole body's cold. You know, so with the rectangular, you don't have that. But I know what's called a cap. You know, I take a sleeping cap with me, and I stay nice and warm. And those big rectangular bags are comfortable. I can move.
You can fit two if you have to.
And I have. That's why you take your spouse.
In your experience with the sleeping bag, you know, they all have a temperature rating. How close is that to reality?
They're not.
Actually, the big secret is you gotta have something under that bag. And the thicker your insulation pad, is better. I can't remember, ThermaRest, I guess, is like the most popular one. Those are good.
I think those numbers are based on survival, not comfort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. This coming fall, I'm gonna try a cot, like a real ultralight cot. Like down in the Georgia hunt, I didn't use a cot the first couple of years until someone discovered a rattlesnake. It crawled into the tents, one of the tents, and so we all use cots now to get up off the ground. But on my upcoming hunt, I'm actually gonna try an ultralight cot to get myself off the ground, and a nice thick ThermaRest pad.
So that sort of like,
Well, you listed Pack 5 bag. What does Pack 5 bag mean?
Oh, I have no idea.
That was like 2 slides ago.
It's like Peak 5, I think it's a brand name.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it you recommending that? And the next one,
This one?
Pack 5. No,
No, one,
there's another one.
I saw it. He had it there.
Oh, forward?
Pack.
Pack 5? It's not ringing a bell.
I saw it too.
Pack 5?
Probably a brand.
Oh,
I
next
probably
one.
wrote it down for a reason, but like I said, I'm old.
Peak 5.
What is it?
Peak 5.
Peak 5?
Yeah, you guys have probably been in a situation, I've been in hunts where I underestimated that I didn't have a good quality sleeping bag. I had to get in there with every piece of clothes I owned, and my boots, so I wouldn't freeze to death. You don't want that situation.
so that thermal pad that you mentioned,
ThermaRest.
thermal.
Yeah, you can get those, I mean, they're real thin all the way to like 2 inches thick. They make a huge difference.
Some of those ThermaRest, you gotta watch too. If you get a pretty thick one, if you're gonna be in a really cold area, make sure you get one that has reflective insulation inside of it. Because a thick air mattress will freeze you to death. It's comfortable.
It's got to reflect the heat.
If you can get them to have a reflective layer and it reflects the heat back up.
Yeah,
But that is,
Some of those thicker air mattresses, you'll get really cold on them.
yeah.
Cold weather.
but you do gotta get off the ground.
Most of the ThermaRest now, they're insulated, they'll feel a lot. They're reflective too, but they are insulated. They'll give you anywhere from a 1.5 to a 6.0, depending on how thick it is.
They give the gradient on them now for the R, what's it called, R value?
Yeah.
Our value,
Yeah.
it's pretty accurate what they are.
Yeah.
You gotta watch out with some of those thermalists, they got that slick nylon on them.
Yeah.
At an angle, you're not on.
If you're not on flat, you're gonna end up with the bumper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like a Big Agnes with a mummy that has the slide in.
Oh, yeah. I see that.
They have their own and.
That is nice.
Yeah, and then it's got the head cover, it's got everything, you
Yeah.
save weight, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
but I like
that's
a
a
mummy.
key point.
You
Yeah.
sometimes you can find in armed surplus the 3-layer bags.
Yeah.
Where you can put, you know, a 4-layer bag, you put 2 layers on the bottom, 2 layers on top, and if it's really warm, put 3 layers on the bottom and 1 on top, and they work out pretty well.
Yeah.
You just have to be weight conscious, you know, if you're gonna travel or pack it or move it anywhere, you know, you gotta be a little weight conscious.
One more super cheap budget add-in that throws on the top of the pack easy if you have space are the cheap yoga mats.
Yeah.
Like that goes under your ThermaRest, then your ThermaRest, then your bag, and it provides another R value that's super cheap.
Yeah. So one little trick that I used in Alaska several times, because it rains every day in Alaska, and on a couple of moose hunts, so I always use wool. I'm cheap too, you know, so I don't have all these real fancy words or cryptic or whatever. But anyway, so wool, but it gets wet, but you stay warm. But when at night, so I have a little cot, and you put your clothes there, and then your ThermaRest, and you sleep on top of it, and they're pretty dry in the morning.
Yeah. Or I even throw my clothes in the bag. You can put the clothes in the bag too, like your socks or your long johns or whatever, and it's magically dry in the morning. So that's pretty good. One thing I might try this year if I do go out to the Rocky Mountains is a lot of my friends are using the hammocks. That actually looks pretty good for ultralight backcountry hunting. Have you used that?
I have a Hennessy hammock, and it's an ultralight ASIM. The whole package deal is 1.5 pounds, and it depends on your weight rating. They have a larger one, jumbo. But the coolest thing about it is the first complaint people say is you don't want to sleep point to point. And like the Hennessy's are made ASIM, which means they're asymmetrical. They actually come with your bug meshing attached. So when there's a gap in the bottom and you unvelcro it, crawl in the bottom, or it's real easy. You just kind of stand up in it and turn around. And when you lay down in it, the Velcro closure closes, so you're enclosed in bug mesh, and then you turn off sideways. It's made to, the minute you go off the point sideways, you go flat. Now, the one thing they built for it is they're great in warm weather, and then they made a new thermal rated insulated reflective that goes under it, so you can sleep in the snow and everything now. And then when you get out of it, you just roll your hammock up to the top strap, and then you have a full rain shield that's over it that you can cook under, that you can do everything under and sit there, and it's this big.
Now, what kind of price range are we talking for something?
I think I got that one at REI 10 years ago for like 150, 200 bucks.
Yeah.
It's not super cheap, but the value in weight to size to comfort, off the ground.
So again,
yeah, it'd be an early season, whatever.
Yeah.
but you're selecting how you're going to sleep, whether it's a hammock or a tent. It's really, really important to match it to where you're going. You know, so I took a tent. First time I was 97. I flew up to the Molchatna herd in Alaska, and it rained every day. But the rain wasn't as bad as the 70-mile-an-hour winds. You know, so I was fortunate. My tent didn't, the poles didn't snap, but they flew into this other group of guys on the other end of the lake, and their tent pole snapped because it was 3 days of 70-mile-an-hour winds, and his tent pole snapped. So they're laying. We walked down and checked on them after that, a day or so. We went down and walked down and checked on them, and they're laying in their tent in a puddle of water. And they're laying there in the water like this. I said, guys, you can come on down. We'll make room for you in the tent. And they're like, no, we're afraid to move. We're warm. They were in their wool, laying there in the wool in the water. It's cold. But it was the wrong kind of tent. You know, they had a higher profile tent versus one, as you can see, the yellow one there that's going to shed the wind, etc. So you've got to get the right tent for the areas that you are. If you're going in the high country, you probably don't want a big high profile tent. If, the wind's going to be an issue. We also learned where you put your tent. One year I put the tent really close to the alders because the year before we had all that high wind, and I thought, well, this will be great. The alders will break the wind. Well, the alders also hide the bears when they come in.
You didn't notice that cow path?
Well, yeah. So there's an advantage to having your tent out in the open like that because you can see the bears coming. And grizzlies like spaghetti. They obviously think I'm a good cook. And they can get really close to you when they're in the alders and you don't see them. So be a little cautious of that too. And you can see the different tent types and just where you're going. So just match your tent to your experience and where you're going.
And one thing, it says GPS compass. I just recently discovered Onyx about a year and a half ago. And wow, what a difference that makes. And I hunt a lot of places where I don't have cell coverage, but you can just download the map, save it to your phone, and track where you're going. You have all these points, and especially if you have to worry about boundaries or private property. That is an example of using technology to really increase the quality of your hunt.
This is just an example. You never know. So you'll see somebody like black pepper. It's like, wow, that guy cooks. He really likes his pepper. This was because in Alaska, if you take lemon juice and black pepper, mix it in together, you hang your moose meat up, and you slather the citric acid and the pepper on it. It creates a crust on it, keeps the flies off, so you don't have little white crawly things on it right into the hunt.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
But that gear list is really good. But just right before this talk, I was talking to someone who'd been up to Alaska a couple of years ago, and I got to spend 10 minutes picking his brain about gear. I mean, I already been to Alaska a couple of times and had some ideas. But he gave me a couple of tips that I didn't know about. Someone else gave me some tips that I didn't know about. So you got a great resource here. Use it. These guys, people who've been there before, they can help you out a lot. Travel arrangements. By land. I learned this the hard way last year. I drove out in Utah. I took my truck that had almost 500,000 miles on it, and it was running good on the way out. On the way back, not so much. I got into Laramie, Wyoming, and one of my fuel injectors went out. And so in hindsight, it would have been smarter to take a truck with maybe less than 400,000 miles on it. So, you know, that, my very first hunt, I rented that vehicle, and I just rented a truck on budget, and I did a hunt, and it worked out pretty well. So, you know, the basic, take care of your vehicles, and, you know, get a good vehicle, air. You know, I'm sure a lot of you all here have flown in on hunts, you know, and the weight limit is critical. So, you know, the items there are really, really important for the flying hunts.
The couple key tips, always, if you can, take your really fragile or expensive cameras, optics. I usually take those as carry-on. At least you can watch as opposed to seeing the baggage and there's costumes on the side. You know. You mail things in advance. You can see that tote. You can mail things up in advance. It saves you on extra baggage fees. It's a little cheaper. And it's a great way if you're in remote areas to get meat back. I mean, for either out west or Alaska. What I used to do is I would take and, if I was successful, I would take and mail my gear home, and then you're allowed 2 50-pound bags as just luggage, you know, without fee generally. So you can freeze that in fish boxes, and you can take it as luggage versus and have at least a good chance that the meat gets home, and then you mail your gear, which doesn't matter too much. Well,
Yeah. Alaska Airlines, you can, for $50 a pop, you can take 50 pounds extra.
so Walt saying for Alaska Air for $50 more bags,
So
you
you
take
just
extra.
throw them into a box or into an ice chest and ship it, or break, check it in as extra baggage. Just
So
don't make it
we got Herb in the back here. He once took a Sitka black-tailed deer as carry-on. He did.
It wouldn't sit with me for some reason.
Yeah, it's a way to get your own seat on the plane. Randy?
You know, I'm working at the airport now, and in the fall, we got a bunch of guys that come in there killing bears and deers and stuff. TSA's always calling us down there, but it's gotten real popular. You guys are going to use my head, never thought about it. But the Yeti bag, they're putting a whole deer and freezing the meat solid.
Yep.
Put it in those Yeti bags.
Yep.
It doesn't collapse, it doesn't crush, it doesn't do anything. It's not as cheap as a box of styrofoam. But there's a lot of those going to the airport right now, so it must work pretty well.
Good tip. Yeah, Yeti bags, because you can pack them collapsible. A lot of times, I know a lot of you guys probably use coolers. You pack all your gear out that you want to keep dry in the cooler, and then on the way back, you just throw in the duffel or something, you know, so that's always nice to put the meat in the coolers. Air travel tips. I mean, again, you guys probably know most of this. I use services that search different fares, Orbit, Search Trail, you know, and then again, for whatever reason, a lot of times April through July tend to have lower fares than if you get them right beforehand or too far in advance. You know, make sure on any Alaska type hunts you factor in your weather delays because they're very likely going to happen. Either a day on or a day later or 2 or 7, you know, it happens.
How do you guys handle broadheads? And in other words, if you have them in a package, can you take that as a carry-on?
Absolutely not.
No, because they're considered, it's like a knife?
You have to pack them.
Full cavity, like that is surgery. You cannot take a knife or broadhead or anything like that.
That's all checked?
Yeah.
Yeah. No sharp. It used to be, back in the day, I remember I got on an airplane and had probably 8 or 10 gun cartridges in my pocket. They're like, just no problem. But that's not that way anymore. You know, I know Brian made a joke about it that, you know, and, you know, as an appreciation gift for some of the volunteers and some of the people that's worked this big, you know, we're giving them away a knife. And I said, well, that'll last about a week, and TSA will
get some really nice
pocket knives.
Springfield guys are going to get some really good knives.
Yeah.
It's almost pretty good.
Okay.
Hey, I was going back to the meat care, you know, not really Alaska, but if you're going through the Rocky Mountains or Midwest, you know, most of you guys probably know how to break down an animal and cut it up. You can save a lot of money by doing it yourself. You just got to make sure that you get it, you know, you get the meat in a cooler on ice and get it home. But, you know, one time I had to pay to have it help cut up and process because I was still going to be there another while. And I remember thinking when I wrote the check to pay for it, everything, I could have done this for, you know, nothing if I had got it home. So you can save a lot of money by taking care of the meat yourself.
just tell them a little bit about this. I mean, we'll go through, you can see these different categories if you plan ahead, and a partner, if you can split costs, it always is a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, going by yourself is okay, but if you, like Terry said, if you split the cost, you can really save some money. And so this is just a little spreadsheet that we use where you include all the items like the license, the hunt food, the fuel. For me, that's the fuel cost is a lot of times that's my biggest expense. Travel, food, the hotel, and so forth. So those things add up. But I guess the main point here is if you can find a good partner to split the cost, you can really go on more hunts.
Again, a lot of questions, good stuff though. Travel food and travel motel, $50, $60. That's not for 7 days, is it? Or is that a day?
It's like the travel. It's like on the way there,
Yeah.
or on the way back.
So like the motel, we're counting $120, so if you split it, $60, but it's not really too expensive. And this would be like a trip to that was South Dakota, for example.
And the travel foods, like you stop at McDonald's on the way out.
Okay.
Oh, make a backup plan. We're going to run through these really quick. We were on an alligator hunt in Florida, and Hurricane Katrina decided to wash out the road. So we go make a backup plan and have some fun with it. So that's our boys shooting armored catfish out in the middle of the road.
Flooded road.
Flooded road. Develop your hunting strategy. Again, be very flexible. Are you going to glass and stalk? Are you going to ambush, tree stands, river crossings, timber passes? And again, be flexible, because what you think may work, once you get out there, the conditions, the environment, the animals, they're going to dictate something different. So you can't get stuck in a rut on some of these things. You got to be a little bit flexible and adapt to the situation. After the shot, you got to keep it dry. Meat care. If you go to Alaska, there's wanton waste laws, and they are serious.
Very serious.
And if meat on the ribs is meat, and you got to remove it. Some areas it's meat on the bone that you have to take out. Some areas you don't have to. So know your regulations, and they're serious. We had we're 60 miles from the nearest village, out in the middle of the wilderness. Hadn't seen a plane, a wisp of a plane trail, all for 7 days. You shoot a 60-inch bull, and the state troopers land within 20 minutes. I don't know how they know, but they know. And they show up and they check you.
But you definitely have to know how to take care of the meat. If you're going to go all expensive to hunt and everything, you better have a plan to be ready to take care of the meat.
A lot of things about getting them home, how to get them home, some tips and tricks. If you can freeze them and take them as whack boxes, that's nice. Antlers, if you take them on the planes, you got to protect the antler tips or not. They don't care about your antlers. They care about the other passengers' luggage that you just poked a hole through with your antler tips. So you got to wrap those and stuff like that. Safety, again, we all know you're more likely to die driving to the airport than you are to die on a hunt from a grizzly bear or from a rattlesnake or something like that. So, you take your precautions, you know what the dangers are, and to your point about broadheads, they're very sharp for a reason. And if you're careless, we've all heard the horror stories of people sticking themselves in the femoral artery out 5 miles from the road, and they bleed to death. So you have to be prepared. I carry a suture kit with me in the wilderness, and I've had to suture myself up out in the wilderness. So you got to be prepared. Otherwise, you could be in bad shape. And you got to know your limitations. So I got to tell this story. So I as a kid growing up, I was allergic to bees, but it was never bad enough that I ever had any anaphylaxis or went into anaphylactic shock or not. But anyway, so I got stung by a bee. I was in town, and it got to the point where I couldn't drive. Fortunately, God thinks I still have a purpose here on earth. So my wife and my son were within seconds away from me, for whatever reason, because I couldn't drive anymore. I pulled over. They were there. They drove me immediately to the emergency room, and then they move when you're in anaphylactic shock. They took me in, gave me the epi shot, but it was a blessing. What a great blessing, because I'm on these hunts out in the middle of nowhere, up in the mountains of Colorado, hours to days from help. And if that would have happened without me knowing in that situation, now I take an EpiPen. So you gotta prepare for those things.
Hey Jeff,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of using super glue as a
Yes.
switcher.
Yep.
Does that work? Has
Yes.
anyone
It
used
actually
that?
works.
All the time.
Really? So that's valuable?
Right on my fly fishing.
So we're gonna kind of wrap things up here. Go ahead.
Yeah, on the bottom one up there, or maybe you covered this, I must have missed it. No bear spray on planes?
No, you can't.
You can't fly with that.
Yes. You take the outside. When we flew in.
Oh, you talked about bush
The
plunge.
pilot said, did you bring any bear spray? We said, no, because we couldn't. He says, oh, we take them out on the wing.
Yeah, or they'll put them in the floats, yeah.
We were talking about more like commercial flights.
Yeah. These are some examples. So you can see, I mean, the Georgia hog hunt, you can do pretty dang cheap. You know, these things that you just can't be afraid to go. If you save a little money, go experience some of these things. You know, it's a very different hunt, but it's a fun hunt. There's a lot of things that you can do. That was my experience. Jeff did it even cheaper because he lived closer. You know, here's Florida alligator. It's expensive, but if you go for a guided hunt, you can see a guided hunt for a 9 to 12 foot gator. It's $3,000. Guaranteed 10 foot's $4,000. You do it on your own, you can get them for about $1,800. That's including everything. You know, and it's one of the funnest hunts you'll ever do. South Dakota mule deer, again, $700, $800. Wyoming cow elk, and you can see that's the tag.
The tag was almost $1,000, $900. So, and then again the transportation costs. But these things are very doable.
And again, these are just examples, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. But you know, close to home hunts can be fun. You know, next state over, something like that. If you plan, prepare, and just take the time to really position yourself for these do-it-yourself hunts, or anybody can do them. A lot of people say, "Man, I'd really like to go to Alaska." Go to Alaska. You know, prepare and go. You know, my son, when he was 15, he saw something on TV. He said, "Dad, I'd really like to go alligator hunting." It's like, okay,
Let's go alligator.
let's go alligator. We knew nothing about it. In fact, after we got a 10-foot alligator in the boat, my son's sitting on it, and the alligator stands up in the boat. He said, "Oops, I guess we didn't do that right."
Well, we were perfecting our methods. Any questions or comments, right?
So is there any way you guys could post that or just maybe send us an email of the?
If you send me an email, I will send it to you. My email address is in the magazine. Jeff's in the magazine. We'll send the presentation to you.
Is there any way to put this on the PBS website somehow? You can open up, because I know some places do it when this is really good
Ask
stuff.
Harmony. She probably I'll give it to her, and she can get it up there.
Yeah.
And I know I'm super new to the group. This may already be happening, and I don't know it. But you guys, I'm sure, like trade hunts, friend to friend, like.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Here on this banquet, this is one of the best places for trading hunts, getting together. You know, we got the membership hunts, so yeah, we do that stuff.
The biggest problem we have, we don't have enough time to do all the hunts that we have the opportunities to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just a couple of gear questions I'll throw out to everybody. You mentioned Onyx. Has anybody got any recommendations on solar phone chargers?
There's a bunch of them out on the market now. There's even new folding ones that are pulling in more power than ever.
Right.
Will keep they'll hold up enough juice for 3 days of your cell phone or camera equipment on trail, like from backpacking experience, as well as some that will bank up with much less weight for up to like a week now, and then it just dumps the power to whatever you're using, your phone device, GPS, whatever.
Yeah, and one website that's really, really good, you got to probably Rock Slide is a great website for getting information on gear and so forth, so you can go on there, but those are good.
The other
Yeah.
It's fully charged when you go, and it'll fully charge 2 hours.
Yeah, so that's no longer a problem.
Leave it on
You can go on
almost 10
something.
or 8 hours. And it's completely
Yeah,
charged.
you're good to go.
Down in Georgia,
Because you can't be in the wilderness without driving.
Yeah, the other question was optics related. Is anybody familiar with like a website that's done any like
I agree.
no horse in the race research on optics? I know if you buy Swarovski, you're good to go, but it's so convoluted anywhere between the top and the bottom that
I got some Nikon Monarchs that are real reasonable that I've had great luck with.
I like Vortex a lot. In fact, there's a Vortex in the raffle there that's really nice, but I've had good luck with Vortex.
If you're looking for a really high-end pair of optics, worked with optics a lot, I've taught photography. I got a pair of the Vortex UHDs, their latest high-end. Now they're a little heavier, but optically, I can't tell the difference between those and the Swarovski ELs, which are like a $2,300 pair of binoculars.
Yeah.
These are $1,500.
Yeah, big
They're
difference.
incredible. Big difference.
Well,
I've had the high-end Leicas, Swarovskis, everything. I still wear Leicas, but I downsized. I go to a 10-25. That's all I use anymore. In my trucks, I carry same as him, the Nikon Monarchs, and then another Leupold and one of the other ones for blasting out of there, and then spotting scopes. But in the field, all I ever carry is my 10-25.
You guys YouTube?
Well, we gotta let you guys go. If you
Thanks,
have
guys.
any
Thanks
more
a lot.
questions, come on up.